Michigan Magazine is kept on the road by our many Michigan friends. Cops and Donuts Bakery, downtown Clare, a winning combination. Cops and Donuts. Introducing the Weed Gator. For safe and easy aquatic weed removal, the Weed Gator is the #1 alternative to harsh chemicals for getting rid of pond and lake weeds. Safe and effective. See it in action now at weedgator.net. Made in the USA. The Cedar Tavern and Grill of Lupton, where friends come to meet friends and families come for delicious food and a wholesome atmosphere. Come relax with your favorite beverage or bring the crew for a great meal and live entertainment. It's happening now at the Cedar of Lupton. The Michigan-made rebounding mailbox pole. Never again worry about the winter snowplow taking out your mailbox. With this ingenious rebounding pole, your mailbox takes a hit and keeps coming back year after year. Call now or visit their website, toughmailboxes.com. This week on Michigan Magazine, we venture into Michigan's UP to witness the masterful manipulation of native clay into beautiful utilitarian art at Heerspink and Potter Pottery near Cedarville. Then we learn amazing things about the evolution of the notorious Purple Gang in Michigan from criminal investigator and best-selling author Paul Kavief. It's coming up on this edition of Michigan Magazine. Cops and Donuts Bakery, downtown Clare. What began as a crazy idea among 9 police officers to purchase the historic Clare City Bakery quickly became an international phenomenon, carrying on a Michigan tradition with delicious donuts, pies, pastries, breads, original coffee, and more. Plus a full menu at the new adjacent traffic stop diner. Downtown Clare, a winning combination. Cops and Donuts. Shopping for that special person just got easier when you shop at Rose City Drug at 2640 North M33, just south of the Rose City city limits. You'll find gifts for everyone on your list from 1 to 100. Shop online or in person at Rose City Drug, Rose City. The character of the past is being preserved in beautiful, useful pieces of pottery by Heerspink and Potter Pottery near Cedarville. In our recent travels into Michigan's eastern Upper Peninsula, we were directed to the work of potters Brent Heerspink and Julie Porter. Slightly off the beaten path, somewhere between Cedarville and Sault Ste. Marie, we discovered their studios alongside an outdoor brick kiln. The uniqueness of the pottery produced here comes not only from the skill of these experienced artisans, but also from their firing method. This pottery is fired in their brick kiln, fueled by wood. The raw clay is exposed to the direct action of the fire and smoke as the flames flow through the kiln. It's a technique that results in giving each piece its own individual character.
Wood firing is a very old technique that goes back to the earliest pottery. At one time people found they could make pottery in a fireplace. Maybe they smeared some clay on a basket to patch it up or something, put it by the fire, and they found out that it hardened. And the progression from there on was to go to higher and higher temperatures and hotter. This type of pottery, where the stoneware clay, fired and colored by a wood kiln, goes back at least 5,000 years.
Oh my goodness.
And it has it's been done almost all parts of the world. At some time, potters have made real simple pots out of clay, put them in high temperature kiln, and let the kiln do most of the glazing. When like on this piece, when the wood fire gets on there, it causes variations of color and texture and sheen, and from the volatilized ash and small amounts of common salt that are in the kiln. So
and you also let the smoke do a little bit of the work too, don't you?
The smoke colors the pot. In this sense, this bowl would be a good. This lighter colored clay here is what might be termed the natural color of the clay in a clean firing. When smoke is in the fire, it reduces the metals in the clay, the iron particularly, to an oxide form, and it darkens it. And so we get this type of thing called fire marking. Lighter on the side away from the fire, darker towards the fire.
And it does add a character all its own, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a very old technique. And right now, it's as popular as it's ever been in the United States.
Oh, yeah. That is beautiful. And these are utilitarian pieces, too.
They're totally functional. They're stoneware clay. They have an absorption of probably 1%. They're glazed with impermeable glazes. Like these are a glaze made from 1/3 ash, 1/3 clay, and 1/3 feldspar. And for the local, we use local clay in that glaze.
Local, how local is this?
Well, there's a clay pan to the north of us. When you came from Pickford,
Oh, sure.
okay, that flat area is the bed of an ancient lake. It's 300 feet deep. The clay is about 50 some miles wide by 72 miles wide there. It's a very fine grained ocean bottom clay called alluvial clay. It can be used, but only at low temperatures. There's some problems with low temperature glazes. We go to a much higher temperature and use stoneware glazes, which basically are using natural stones ground up and remelted into really synthetic stone. Our clay itself is a mixture of a fire clay and a stoneware clay. One comes from the pits in the Ohio River Valley where the early American salt glaze stoneware was made. The other one comes from Mexico, Missouri. There's a company that produces fire bricks worldwide. So it's two huge clean deposits of clay. We mix those together with sand to make what's called a clay body.
Tell us a little bit about your personal background, how you and Julie got into the world of pottery and stoneware specifically, and then into the wood fire stone pottery here.
When I was in college, I was going to be an elementary education teacher. And they had, the requirement in Michigan was for 9 hours of art and music. I had taken band in high school and enjoyed it, so the music part was no problem. I didn't know what I was going to do in art. I always thought, well, I'll try pottery. And I really loved it. I kept going from there. I got an opportunity to work in a traditional pottery in England and France. I got some training that way, came back, set up a pottery of my own. At that time I met Julie. Julie was a Grand Valley pottery course student. They had like a professional pottery course there. She can probably tell you a little more about that.
I spent 3 years in a pottery course there, and then after that I went and worked at Greenfield Village at the pottery there. And after that I went and worked with Brent. So.
You got together in the mutual interest there.
Yep.
Right.
What's so fascinating about the world of pottery? I mean, what do you like about it? Is it just the forming of something out of the raw materials, or do you have your own story to tell about what is unique about it to you?
I think it is, for me, the natural material that was the first attractive thing. It's such a fluid thing to work with.
My dad and my family were woodworkers, and when I was in high school, I took quite a few metalworking courses. You're always working by subtraction. You start out with a piece, and you cut pieces off it to make what you want. All right? If you cut too much off, you've got a problem. With clay, you can have a dent. And it's a wonderful plastic material that responds more than anything else just to hands. You don't need thousands of dollars worth of equipment and special tools, routers, planers, and welders or anything like that. You basically can make pots with nothing more than clay from the ground, your hand, and a bonfire. It can get increasingly sophisticated as it goes on from there, but I think for us it's so plastic and so responsive.
Rather forgiving too.
Yep. And one of the beautiful parts about clay is, say we make a pot and we have some scraps left over, you save those scraps and you recycle them, and that clay is actually nicer clay than the clay you started with.
Really?
So there's no sawdust going out the back door or anything like that.
There's no waste here at all.
Theoretically, no.
Theoretically,
I mean,
no, but
they talk about zero emission, zero output businesses. A pottery definitely could be that way. I mean, any clay scrap goes in that barrel. Any clay scrap that goes on the floor goes outside and goes as a mud pack on our wood kiln. So you can keep reusing that clay. It's been said with electric kiln, if you put things in, they should come out exactly the way you imagine it. If not, there's some kind of technical flaw going on.
I see. It's pretty much down to a science, more or less.
Right. You've mixed your glaze poorly or something happened. With the wood kiln, you put them in, and when you open it up, there'll be pots in there that you could not imagine. No pot looks like you imagined it.
It's like Christmas every day.
As that flame goes through the kiln, it carries the volatiles, the wood ash and the salt with it. Yeah, people often say that, and we think that way too. It's like Christmas. It's a very exciting thing.
The heat, as far as temperature-wise, is there a difference between the electric and the wood? Can you get it up to a certain temperature of the wood?
The wood kiln, if it's designed properly, and the person that's stoking it knows what they're doing, you have goodwill. The problem is not reaching temperature. The problem is holding it down.
Oh.
And typically, the way that we do it is, we have a 5-year-old boy. His new job is what we call the preheat. He keeps a campfire going in there for the first day. The next morning we get up and we extend that campfire slowly, so that the flame extends through the kiln about a foot at a time, till finally it's going through the whole kiln. By that time the kiln is red hot. This may be anywhere from 6:30 to 9 o'clock at night. And at that point Julie will take over stoking. And you know, unless it's incredibly bad weather or the wood is really wet, the problem is not reaching temperature. The problem is keeping it slowed down so that it heats evenly through the whole kiln.
Come up here to the kind of inspirational part of the state, the Upper Peninsula. I mean, that's kind of the wilderness out through here, and you get a lot done.
Yeah, we both like the wildness of it.
Yeah.
The last few weeks of winter can get kind of long sometimes.
I'll bet they can. That's when you do a lot of your work too, is winter, is it? Or?
It's our one time a year when we have a solid block of work. In about 3 weeks, we start on our shows. The first one is in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Then 2 weeks later in Birmingham, Michigan. 2 weeks later, East Lansing. Then it starts getting even busier till later in the summer. It's like a show a week. And at that time of year, basically we're trying to react to what's selling.
Well, from the Eastern UP, we'd like to thank Brent and Julie from Heerspink and Potter Pottery for sharing their world with us of the beautiful, unusual wood-fired process here. Thank you very much, Brent. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Julie, keep up the great work, and we'll see more of your items on the trade shows and special galleries throughout the state.
Great.
Thank you.
Michigan Magazine is being brought to you in part by Hale Hardware, your do-it center in Hale, Michigan. Much more than a regular hardware store, providing everything you need for whatever your project is, along with a knowledgeable sales staff to get her done. Serving Northern Michigan since 1946. Hale Hardware, south of M65 at Ainsley in Hale. Something special's cooking, hot and delicious. Indulge yourself at Morning at Maggie's in Bay City. Omelets, frittatas, hotcakes, and more. Make every day special with a stop at Morning at Maggie's for breakfast or lunch on Saginaw in Bay City.
I've actually got 2 books on the subject. Okay. I've written 4 books altogether. My area is organized crime history. The first book was called The Purple Gang, Organized Crime in Detroit, 1910 to 1945. And the other book that has to do with the Purple Gang is a pictorial called Detroit's Infamous Purple Gang by Arcadia Books, and that came out in 2008. I've got 2 other books, one called The Violent Years, Prohibition and the Detroit Mobs, which focuses, there's a chapter on the Purple Gang, but it actually focuses on all the other organized crime groups that were operating in the city during the 20s.
Oh my goodness, and this was quite a big operation, was organized crime in the city of Detroit?
Detroit was the 4th largest city in the United States in the 20s, and probably the most wide open city. I think it was worse than New York or Chicago. Didn't get the same press, but I think it was worse.
How in the world did you get interested in this subject?
It's an area, as a historian, I've always been interested in organized crime history. I've always been interested in outlaws, organized crime figures. I don't know what that says about my interests, but or about me, but I've been an organized crime historian for quite some time.
One that intrigues us is, of course, the Purple Gang. Now, how many tentacles did you find the Purple Gang going in the state of Michigan? I know there's places that I've never heard of before that had some sort of connection with this organization.
I think that the Purple Gang basically operated all over Michigan. Of course, probably one of the best known places is the Graceland Ballroom, mostly because it was built by a former Purple gangster, a guy named One Arm Mike Gelfin. They called him One Arm because he was missing a limb. And Gelfin came up here and built the Graceland Ballroom on land that was either willed to him or given to him by his sister in the early 30s. Okay. And this was actually constructed between 1933 and about 1934, 35. And when it was finished, it was actually the largest, what they call rustic pavilion-style ballroom. It was rumored that at that time there were tunnels and there was a runway where a small plane could land, and it was supposed to be kind of a watering hole for Midwestern gangsters that were on the lam, hiding from the law or hiding from other gangsters.
Now, the evolution of the Purple Gang, that amazed me when you told everyone that it started from really much a group of kids, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, basically a group of teenage kids, the children of recently immigrated, predominantly Russian Jewish people. Parents were legitimate, hard-working people, and the kids were kind of became delinquents, operated on the streets in the Lower East Side of Detroit, turning over push carts and robbing from peddlers and rolling drunks. Basically the same kind of apprenticeship most organized crime figures serve when they're kids. They had no conflict with Al Capone. Actually, in 1927, Capone had come to Detroit and wanted to establish a liquor franchise here. And supposedly, being that underworld characters don't keep memoirs, the story goes that he had a meeting at the Pickford Shelby Hotel, which is close to the Detroit River, between the Bernstein brothers, the leadership faction of the Purple Gang, and Capone, and also the River Gang. These guys did most of the rum running on the Detroit River. This was an organized crime group that were the predecessors of the modern mafia in Detroit today. And essentially, Abe Bernstein, the leader of the Purple Gang, supposedly pointed out the window and told Capone that river belongs to us. Any business you do in Detroit will either be through us or you're not going to operate here. And Capone, being the astute businessman that he was, for a couple of years was contracting for the Purple Gang to bring him what they call Old Log Cabin. Really, it was just cut Canadian whiskey. Old Log Cabin was just a label the Purple Gang put on bottles.
Okay. So you cover this quite extensively in your books?
Yes.
Okay, now, did you find out, as your research, was there anything that surprised you about the gang, or that kind of brought to light something that you were just kind of struck by, or is it something that you knew the pattern?
No, I think that truth is always stranger than fiction, and being Jewish and growing up in Detroit's Jewish community, I heard stories about the Purple Gang most of my childhood. I think it was interesting to find out that most of it wasn't true, but the reality of it was much more interesting. Yes.
Okay. Now, where can anybody get your books?
Well, my books can be obtained on Amazon, either Detroit's Infamous Purple Gang, which is an Arcadia book, or they've just reprinted The Purple Gang Organized Crime in Detroit, 1910 to 1945. That is a barricade book, and that should be available now on Amazon. They've just reprinted that. They're going to be reprinting The Violent Years for anybody that's interested in the criminal scene in Detroit in the 20s. That's very interesting for anybody who wants to study the rudiments of the Detroit Mafia today. It goes into some detail on the River Gang, the Purple Gang. Detroit was a hotbed for all kinds of organized crime groups, bank robbers, safe crackers, you name it. Every kind of criminal, any description of criminal that you can come up with was operating in Detroit in the 20s.
Amazing part of history. Well, we appreciate you stopping by. And you are on kind of a little tour throughout the state every once in a while, and people can get a hold of you for speaking engagements too. How would they do that?
Well, they could contact me through my internet, AA7697 at Wayne, WAYNE.edu.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, Barry.
It's back and making memories for a new generation. The Rustic Inn of Lewiston, now open to chase away those winter blues with hot, delicious food, your favorite beverage, and an atmosphere that'll keep you coming back to make new memories and new friends. The new Rustic Inn on Red Oak Road, just south of Lewiston. Experience the beauty, artistry, and taste of northern Michigan. Come to Amish Country Natural Products on Mount Tom Road, north of Mile, just off M33. From arts and crafts to fresh foods and vegetables, all natural, all local, all good. Stop by and get acquainted with Amish Country Natural Products, 1454 North Mount Tom Road, Mile.
Vacation. Don't make the planning of it more than what you're trying to get away from. At northernmichigancabinrentals.com, you can choose from over 2,500 cabins, cottages, lodges, resorts, lakefront vacation home rentals, and more. Whatever experience you're looking for, from rustic to luxury and everything in between. No more rustling with telephone books. No more endless internet searches. Just one site with over 2,500 Northern Michigan destinations. northernmichigancabinrentals.com.
Thanks for joining us along Michigan's back roads. Hey, we had a wonderful time at Cops and Donuts during Fat Tuesday. So many wonderful viewers joined us to partake in those half-pound rounds of goodness. Watch for more on our visit in the next few weeks here on Michigan Magazine. That inspires today's phrase of the week. It was a fun, food-filled, festive day on the road with Michigan Magazine. Send the phrase to us at one of the addresses shown here. Be sure and include your address so we can make sure winners are awarded. Have a great week. I'm Barry Stutzman reminding you, spring is but a breath away. We'll see you. We'd like to thank all those that help keep Michigan Magazine on the road. Cops and Donuts Bakery, downtown Clare, a winning combination. Cops and Donuts. Hingeman Acres Canoe Livery and Resort on M33 just north of Mayo, catering to the outdoor enthusiasts. Cabins, canoes, kayaks, rafts, and more. Daytime or overnight trips along the world-famous Asabo River. A family getaway for over 75 years. Rose Valley Winery on Beechwood Road in Rose City. See what thousands are raving about, creating a delicious variety of award-winning Michigan wines. Stop by and taste for yourself. The taste of Michigan is yours at Rose Valley Winery. Clemix Sales and Service on Mapes Road, west of Mile, your complete recreational vehicle sales and service connection. Visit their beautiful showroom of new and pre-owned ATVs, lawnmowers, power equipment, snowmobiles, utility vehicles, and more. Clemix Sales and Service is also the home of the American-made Victory motorcycle line on display at Clemix on Mapes Road, Mayo.